Good afternoon and welcome all to our Tax Technology Bite about tax technology opportunities in S4HANA. My name is Lars Haangsma and I will be your host of today's session. First of all, our apologies for cancelling the previous one. Luckily, I see today we have a lot of entities and the IT issues have been solved. Before we start the session, may I ask you all to mute your microphones and switch off your cameras. Our presenters today will have the cameras on when they are presenting. Next to that, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. We will come back to you during the session if possible, and otherwise come back to you after the session. So today we have 4 presenters for you. First of all, Diane Barry. Diane is a partner in our tax technology team with a focus on transfer pricing. Next to that, Gerben de Roest. Gerben is a partner at KPMG in the Netherlands and is the head of the Dutch SAP practice. Gerben has over 15 years of experience in SAP. Last but not least, Gerard Smit. Gerard Smit is a director at KPMG Meiburg in the Netherlands. He has over 20 years of experience in tax tech and tax, and will present today some modules in SAP. My name is Lars Haangsma. I'm a senior manager in our tax technology team with a focus on indirect tax based in Amstelveen. So, what will we discuss today? We will start today with a session about introduction of S4 in a broader perspective, and also the vision of SAP on tax, which is changing. Next to that, we will dive into different modules of tax in the S4HANA model and the end-to-end global tax management and opportunities for tax. After that, we will present you how we should advise you to start in this project and what is a practical implementation approach. And we close the session with some key takeaways and we have some room to ask some questions. Before we start, we would like to start with some questions to you. We start with 2 polling questions. So maybe if we can start the polling questions. First one is your tax department at this stage involved in the S4HANA implementation so far? I see people are answering the questions. We have done a similar session like this one a few years ago, and then I noticed that most of the answers were no, not involved yet, and I think that's still the case. However, it is changing a little bit to yes, tax is set up as a dedicated workstream, which I think is definitely a good sign, and tax is involved to a limited extent. So maybe we can go to the next question. What is your current focus for the S4HANA implementation? So we divide in several topics from a tax point of view, indirect tax, direct tax or transfer pricing, tax reporting, or more overall tax controls and monitoring. I see that it's almost more than 30% is looking into indirect tax / indirect tax determination, which is quite logical if you see how tax technology works, but also quite a large amount on no specific focus yet. So I'm really interested to hear also in the chat why there is no focus yet, or what should be the focus in your case. So before we dive into the tax modules on SAP, I first want to hand over to Gerben de Roest to discuss the S4 landscape in general. Gerben, over to you.
Yeah, Lars, thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. Like Lars mentioned, my name is Gerben de Roest. I'm not 15, but even 23 years KPMG, working in the SAP space, or a few years longer. I'm happy to share some insights about SAP S/4HANA during this webinar. I didn't see all the polls yet, but maybe I should have a look at few results. But anyway, let's go ahead. I think based on your remarks, Lars, it's quite interesting. Before we dive into S/4HANA and the HANA technology, first a more generic slide about what we see in today's economy and what we also see at our homes, in our private lives. So basically, a lot of trends in the digital space. And even today, in today's news, I noticed that Apple announced that they are going to work with Goldman Sachs, and that people can have a savings deposit with an interest of about above 4%. Twitter announced a partnership with an online stockbroker, eToro. That was also in the news this week. We all have seen most probably all the ChatGPT type of developments with our kids and also from a business perspective. A lot of new business models, online, different channels, streaming, etc. So all these type of new trends and developments are fueled by more data, more digital, but it also impacts ERP landscapes, which are traditional more the mid office, the back office type of functions. So ERP is coming more to the front end, basically. And what SAP's answer to support all these digital trends, it is SAP HANA and S/4HANA. Next slide, please, Taya. So S/4HANA is the answer on all those digital trends. And so it's the biggest innovation of SAP in the last 15 to 20 years. It's a complete new product. It's SAP HANA and S/4HANA. So HANA is the technology stack with a faster database in practice. And S/4HANA is the new technology, the new application, or applications, as I can say it. What you see in the market is basically that all major big organizations launched already investigations or are running these type of programs, S/4HANA programs. The smaller companies are starting up or are investigating or doing business case type of studies about when to start these type of migrations. SAP is pushing the market to migrate before 2028. If you are not migrated before 2028, you can still use SAP's current technology, but then you don't get with another maintenance type of contract. But then you miss basically all the new innovations. So what you see is that in the past 15 to 20 years, most companies performed the technical upgrades. So meaning they went from the different versions into the newer releases and basically not using or not always using the new latest technology, but basically using it as a technical type of conversion program. But this is a complete new platform and a complete new product. So a lot of companies also with the cloud developments are taking this type of opportunity to standardize, harmonize, simplify their current business processes in order to move to a cloud platform. Next slide, please. What you see in practice, so it involves the full goods flow. It involves customer processes, production processes, supply chain processes, and also the finance area, obviously. So in all those smaller areas you see, for instance, predictive analytics, live production planning, online real time, EBP, production planning as well, and more intelligent enterprise, having better insights in order to make better decisions. So all kinds of new innovative solutions enabled by S/4HANA. So what you see, typical benefits of SAP HANA and S/4HANA technology, like I mentioned, it enables innovation. It gives you real-time insights, reduce data footprint. The new database and also the cloud solution enables that you can simplify, have a different data footprint, so that helps also from a TCO perspective. And improved user experience. So if you think about the Microsoft tiles, SAP Fiori tiles are a bit similar like that, if I may say so. improved flexibility, the architecture, the integration layers, it's improved in the current in the SAP HANA solution, and faster processing of transactions and reports. So in the past, you can think about batch runs that went overnight, that you have your ECC system or your SAP ERP, a separate BW data warehouse system, and then sometimes depends on how the systems are configured. It took a night before a batch run was performed, and sometimes it's faster, but this new technology is even faster. It's online real time. So
Thanks.
Back to you. So this was a quickie. I will come back later with some more insights.
Thanks a lot, Kerwin, and it's really interesting to see how SAP is developing, and also what that has an impact for tax. For example, you mentioned already faster processing. I think that's really important, but how does what's SAP vision on that one in relating to tax? As we all know, many years ago, still we all had paper tax returns, paper invoices. They were quite standard around the world. What we see is a trend that this is more and more getting digitalized. Why items like faster processing, insights, real time are very important. We see those trends from different angles, as well from businesses who want to improve their processes and digitalize, as well as from the governments. We are driving these trends. From governments, we all see that there's increasing number of reportings. For example, we all know the Pillar 2 reporting, which also requires a lot of more data. Next to that, we see a lot of reporting details. For example, we also have the VAT in a digital age, which combines reporting and e-invoicing. So coming to the last point is the government-controlled invoicing and transparency, which is really important. So also SAP acknowledged that, and they really looked into detail what they can do about it. So they have now a focus more and more on tax with different modules. Due to the complexity of the current tax landscape and the focus on more data, SAP also established their own tax departments. This is different than what they did before, where they were not focusing on content from a tax point of view, but now they have different modules which also really have tax content in there already. So the last years, SAP really invest in that and also have their own tax teams on board. So what kind of models we are talking about? That's something Gerard will tell you in more detail. Gerard, I hand over to you.
Thank you, Lars, and thank you for your kind introduction as well. Yeah, so actually, as Lars already mentioned, SAP is the last couple of years started to focus more on tax as well, by means of also enabling tax modules on top of the S/4HANA stack. And their ultimate goal is to run tax end-to-end. Formerly, the focus of SAP was on indirect tax, but with the introduction of S/4HANA, the focus is no longer only on indirect tax, but yeah, well, it looks to the full end-to-end tax management process. And in doing so, the input from many businesses that use SAP technology and also from their S/4HANA experience is of great value to SAP to continuously develop and implement tax management functionalities. And as Lars already mentioned, SAP now also has tax teams and experts available in several countries, also to help them to bring content on the table and not just provide a black box, but to yeah, also include content in their offering. Later on in the session, I will explain a bit more about that and how that works. But how does SAP manage tax end-to-end? Well, it all starts with the S/4HANA ERP system, which is the business foundation for all processes, including tax. It has a single source of truth with a harmonized and centralized data model as a foundation. And having this foundation already helps companies to implement an integrated and end-to-end process. It's also what Gerben already mentioned at the beginning of this session. And it's integrated with all business processes in the system, as tax will have impact on each of these processes. No matter if you speak about procure to pay process, order to cash, record to report, or whatever process, tax plays a role in each of these processes. The way S/4HANA and any modules or functionality for tax were implemented is key for a successful global tax management implementation. Then it looks into the master data to set up vendor and customer master data, chart of accounts, but also tax calculation and tax determination. And the single source of truth also provides data that can be input and consumed by modules that are relevant to manage tax functions and to help tax departments to set up a compliant process. And then we come to the right side of this slide, looking into data management, monitoring and analytics, and filing and submission, for which SAP offers now a couple of modules specifically for tax, which is compliance management, to automatically identify and correct non-compliant data and address root causes of any issues in the data. It's also document and reporting compliance, which plays a role in the real-time reporting as well as periodic reporting using localized content. Profitability and performance management, which can help you to monitor, simulate, and optimize any processes like Pillar 2, operation transfer pricing, etc. And then, of course, there's also SAP Analytics Cloud, which helps you to set up dashboards to monitor transfer pricing margins, for example, but also to calculate tax provisions and differences and to simulate and optimize tax decisions. And actually what SAP offers is not limited to these 4 modules. We can also think of a GTS for any trade business and processes, excise tax management, but also the integration with third-party software, which is out there in the market for any solutions around tax. And speaking of the latter, often companies still decide to use the third-party solutions for calculation determination, although there are also possibilities to set this up in S/4HANA. But from a content and logic maintenance perspective, companies often rely on external software providers for that particular function. So in summary, the end-to-end global tax management process is based on the foundation of a single source of truth as available in S/4HANA. It's a one platform to perform all closing operations as well as business steering. To reach ultimately steering effectiveness, process efficiencies, and continuous improvements. Having said that, and as promised, I will focus now a bit more on the 4 modules, or at least the first 2, and Diane will take over for the other 2. So moving on to the next slide about risk management and the control framework. SAP Tax Compliance allows to centralize and automate compliance checks, remediation, and improve the quality of tax data by addressing the issues at the source. So it provides automated tax controls framework for streamlined compliance, which is applied to 100% of the transactions. And automation can also be boosted by or via machine learning and whatsoever. It also accelerates and streamlines remediation processes to comply with digital mandates. Alert notifications and orchestrations via SAP workflow. So you will be informed if something is wrong, and then you can create automated rules and corrections in the process of processing your transactions. And for the minor part where automation is not possible, you will be alerted to have a look and to correct any exceptions yourself at the source, meaning that the next time such a transaction enters the system, it will automatically run through the process well. And then, of course, there's also still the possibility to have manual controls in place within S4HANA. And yeah, you always can manually correct any documents or any data, master data or whatsoever. So there will be a repository of issues to improve processes and minimize non-compliance risk. Expedite document corrections within the current period. You have full auditability and stronger controls that address issues at the source and improve the overall quality of tax data. Ultimately, you can reach the compliance by design principle, saying, okay, by having that 100% check on all my transactions and the master data, I already have the option to correct any issues at an early stage, rather than just before filing a VAT return, for example. Okay. Then moving on to the next module. I don't know if there are any questions. Don't see them in the chat.
There's one question whether there will also be a demo on the S4HANA TCM module in this session. No, is the answer. We will have a live demo on DRC, but we can anyhow have one in a following up session. No worries.
Yeah, and also to add to that, the demo on DRC will also a very quick demo, also looking at the time, but we also foresee and plan for the near future to have, or at least to offer the option to have more in-depth demonstrations of these modules. So then moving on to SAP Document and Reporting Compliance, which is SAP's solution to manage e-invoicing, real-time reporting, and statutory reporting worldwide. One solution, globally applicable, locally compliant, as SAP mentions. And actually, this is the module where also a lot of text content is available. As you can see on this slide, they have now 430 plus reports and scenarios implemented in 57 countries, and 100 more scenarios and reports are on the roadmap until the first quarter of next year. And actually what this module entails is that it helps you to automate the e-invoicing process, for example, so to process any incoming e-invoices from your suppliers, but also to send e-invoices to your customers, and to monitor each of these invoices. And actually, it supports or transforms and digitalizes the end-to-end process, which also results in automation and a secure integration with the authorities as well as other business partners. And a business partner can be a customer or a supplier, for example. It also enables standardization, efficiency, and automation, provides transparency and compliance status, and fulfill audit trail requirements. So in the process of processing e-invoices, but also going to the right side of this flow to file VAT returns, for example, or withholding tax returns, it can be monitored step by step, including approvals via workflow, have the opportunities to amend returns upfront, so prior to filing them to the authorities, and making sure that the files filed at the authorities are complete, correct, and also reflect what's in the ERP system. And any changes made to a VAT return or whatever report is filed are also in the audit trail, and you can look them back. I will show them in the demo shortly. So what kind of reports are included in this module? Then you can think of supplier invoices, customer invoices, VAT returns, withholding tax returns, balance of payments, balance sheets, financial audit files or reports, but also any local reporting requirements for the EU, for example, the EU, the EC sales list, Interstat declarations, etc. But also asset accounting and fixed asset reports. Yeah, you also might wonder, 57 countries are now covered, 430 reports and scenarios, but maybe I'm active in countries which are not covered yet. So there, SAP has a community set up where you can also address any gaps in this scope and discuss with SAP if they would like to include them as well. Of course, there's also the question if it's worthwhile to include new countries or new reports, especially if it's a very small country, for example. Well, then also document and reporting compliance can help you to set up a generic text report, which applies to your global organization, and which can be the input to any outsourcing party, shared service center, or a third-party software solution, for example. But then at least you have a harmonized data set coming out from document and reporting compliance module of SAP. Yeah, that helps you to standardize any reporting obligation. So the key pillars for DRC are standardization, simplification, and efficiency. There's a global coverage of the end-to-end process. So from electronic invoicing, electronic reporting to statutory reporting, periodic reporting. And it offers an extensibility platform to also enable you to extend based on existing reports or create full new reports in the same setup as what SAP offers. So let me quickly go through the demo. So actually, this is the starting page. Hopefully you can see my screen, which now has an SAP look and feel. But it's the Managed Document Reporting Compliance section. And here you get a first overview of, for example, per country, region, of all the reports which are completed, due later, due soon, or overdue. In this demo environment, a lot of the documents and reports are red, so are overdue. But for this demonstration, I will show you the Belgium company. Let me remove, and then specifically the VAT return for the year 2023. Oh. And I can see it automatically creates a Belgian VAT return per month in this case, in this setup. You can also see the overdue returns, completed returns, due within a small period of time or due later. For now, it's we're looking into the March period. So if I open the March period, then you have 3 different activities. It all starts with managed tax items, which means that automatically DRC has assigned, based on document date, documents to this period belonging to the same company code. And here you can see which documents are included. You can also see that document date is responsible for showing them in this page. Here you have the option to include or exclude manually. If you exclude them, you will also be asked for entering a comment saying, okay, I would like to exclude the document because I would like to move it forward to the April period reporting. And then it will automatically update also tax reporting date to a date in April. And it will automatically be available in the period April. Since it's all on the same data source, it's also possible to directly link back to the original entry or the original document in S/4HANA. So here you can see the advantage of having a reporting module for tax directly linked to the S/4HANA stack. So I'm okay with this. So I will, and I already generated also looking at the time we have, the VAT return. If I made any changes to the items, so included or excluded items, now I can select new run and it will regenerate the VAT return for this period. And here's the VAT return. It's an XML format in Belgium. This is all SAP content, so provided by SAP. When setting up this VAT return for Belgium in DRC, you don't need to worry about the structure of how the messages need to be received by the Belgian authorities. That's all done by SAP. I will quickly open that one because that will take some time to load. Before that, it's also possible to see what's in the VAT return. So this is a consolidation and assignment of all the amounts of all the items to a specific box in the VAT return. And if I would like to change something in any of these fields, I can add it. And for example, add an amount to a box because I also know that a couple of invoices have been processed outside the system and need to be included in this as well. And later on, I can also upload attachments to the VAT return process. For example, the invoices that have been processed outside. And over here, there's the audit trail. So any changes I make are logged by the system. And how does it look like? Well, you can open that. It's not that quickly. This is the famous demo. But it should show you that I changed on the 6th of April an email address, old value, new value. And of course, yeah, it's then also possible to download the XML file and upload it on the website of the Belgian customer or authorities. But also, if there's an electronic interface, you can also say, I would like to submit it to the authorities, and then the automatically interfaces the VAT return to the interface. If you have done that manually, then you can also update the VAT return to the latest status. So content accepted by the government, content declined by the government, or submitted by the government. Once done, so for example, I know that the government has accepted all the content, then it's done. You can also see that the status is updated, and then the last, after that, the last activity is post-tax payable. If I select that one, then you will see the booking back of all the VAT amounts paid in SAP General Ledger, and then there's a link back from SAP Document Reporting Compliance module to the GL in S/4HANA. That will take some time as well, so I will not wait for that. But there is the integration with S/4HANA in financial administration. So then finally, imagine that the authorities ask for an overview of which transactions have been reported in inbox 85, for example. Then there's also, by default, some analytics available in DRC. And over here you can see all the amounts again in which box these are reported. And say, okay, I'm only interested in box 85. Then I would like to see which documents have been reported. Then you can automatically see, okay, it's only 2 which are responsible for the total amount of taxes, VAT in this period. And then also again the possibility to navigate to the document in S/4HANA to see the details of the document. So this shows you a bit on how quickly you can drill down into a specific situation and also, for example, answer questions of the authorities, saying, okay, we have included these 2 documents in box 85, and that also relates tax code XYZ. So that is a very quick demonstration of how document and reporting compliance looks like. As you can see, for the VAT return process, it covers the full process. Also gives you some capabilities to amend things or to check things. So before filing it to the authorities, and then also later on, if questions come up from the authorities or from your own management, then you can quickly have a deep dive into the details of the VAT return, and then also go back to the bookings in S4 and see what happened there. And having said that, I will give back the floor to Taya to take over my screen and Diane to take us to the next part.
Yes, Gerard, maybe before we go to PAPM and Diane, maybe some questions from the chat. We got some questions about which reportings are included in DRC. So what if current reporting is not included? Are there any options?
Yeah, for sure. I think the options you have, and by the way, SAP has a good documentation on their website of all the countries and all the reports which are included in DRC. But in case the certain document is not included, the first step we would usually take is to see if it's on the roadmap. If it's on the roadmap of SAP, then it's also a question when it will be available, made available by SAP, and otherwise have a discussion with SAP if you can get a report on the roadmap. And depending on that discussion, that will become true or not. And if not, then we still have the opportunity to create a report ourselves and yourselves, and that's actually also part of our job usually, to play a role in saying, okay, can we make a copy of an existing report, for example, because it looks very much like an existing report, and then make all the amendments. Also define the output, should be an XML file or PDF or CSV file whatsoever. Create a mapping, so say, okay, this field from documents included should be mapped to that box in the report. And then after that, it will work quite similar to what you've seen in the demonstration. And the last one, can imagine that, for example, in a very small jurisdiction where it's maybe not that worthwhile to spend a lot of money to set up such a customized report, saying, okay, what about setting up a general tax report with all kinds of tax data elements in there, and have a standard tax file available yourself, which can be used in a shared service center or a compliance outsourcing partner, or maybe in a third-party tool.
Thanks. And the link you are referring to, that one we have in the chat as well, and we will also share after this session.
Yeah.
And one other question, maybe a quick one. Is it only indirect tax, DRC, or is it also other taxes?
It's mainly indirect tax. There's a little bit of direct tax, so also some withholding tax reports, fixed asset reports, general ledger reports, etc. But that's still limited. My vision on that is that SAP, and that's also an historical way of thinking of them. They started with indirect tax, like a lot of other solution providers also do, and now moving more and more also towards other taxes.
Okay.
Question still is if it will be that sophisticated for direct tax as it is for indirect tax now. But yeah, that's something we need to see in the future. And that's also something SAP needs to be willing to invest in, because they also need to have the people expertise available in the countries, and also to keep them up to date and up to speed to provide that content and to maintain that content.
Okay,
But
thanks
yeah.
a lot, Gerard. Very clear, and indeed that's in line with other technologies. So let's go to the next module. May I give the floor to Diane?
Yes, thank you, Lars. Just like Gerard was saying, I think already for some years there is, of course, also an interest to look at indirect taxes in connection with tax technology, and particularly with SAP. And SAP is indeed investing in this. But for the direct taxes and transfer pricing, it takes a little bit more time, because business models are complex. It's also very company specific. So and also rules per country differ. So this is also taking a little bit more time to develop. And actually, this particular module, so profitability and performance management, or PAPM, this was not developed for direct tax or transfer pricing. It was developed to look at profitability and performance management in its broadest sense. But in the end, because it's such a powerful calculation engine, companies that have been using this have seen and have developed use cases that can be used for transfer pricing and direct taxes. So like I was saying, indeed, for transfer pricing, particularly, a lot of calculations are being done by companies, maybe in Excel, maybe Excel powered by Alteryx, or they have built a custom model that is maybe dependent on one person that has all the knowledge of that particular model, and when that person leaves, it's trying to figure out who knows what in terms of the calculations. And we are seeing that companies are, particularly with this move to a new ERP system or the S4 version, that companies are considering, what can we do for transfer pricing and what can we do for direct taxes. So a benefit of this performance management. So this is a powerful calculation engine. That's how you should look at this. It's a very powerful calculation engine that sits on the SAP data. So you have your data pretty much close to real time. You can set up your functionalities to do the calculations that you need, and then further on do some analytics in this module as such. And again, this is a separate module. A separate module that you can use. And after you've done the calculations, you can present them in dashboards of PAPM, or again link it for further analytics and dashboarding with SAC, so Analytics Cloud. We had a meeting, particularly last week, with some people of SAP to discuss this, and I was also telling them, this SAP module exists for quite some years. You can use it also on prior instances of SAP, so it's not S4 specific. So it's been around for a couple of years already. You can use it on SAP, but also non-SAP sources. So it's been used for a couple of years already. But S4, like Gerben was saying, has a lot of different functionality and enhancements. So I was asking SAP, you know, what is still the benefit of using maybe PAPM going forward if you can already build in what you need within the S4 core, if you will. And they told me, and this is something that I think we also hear quite often, is that in embarking on such a process, companies are also looking to keep the S4 core as clean as possible and as lean and mean as possible, and build on, you know, the additional functionalities that they need in separate modules. That's really why it is important to also know what is out there, so you can see, you know, is this something that you should consider when going on this route, or is still, you know, your Excel modules or your other engines that you may use still the right fit for you. So it's not a must, but it is a powerful calculation engine that you know you should consider. So indeed, what can it do? It's source data agnostic, meaning that you can extract that. Well, not extract. It really sits on, and you can have the real-time data from SAP, but you can also link it with an Excel file or another ERP system. So it's source data agnostic. And you can do your enrichments within this calculation model and analysis and reporting. Like I was mentioned, calculation engine, near real time, no data replication. So that's why it's very fast, and the calculations that you are made are, you know, for instance, figure out if you are extracting data from your ERP system, providing it to somebody, they're making a calculation, somebody reviews it. So if this is for an M&A deal or, you know, another planned transaction, the data on which the analysis is being made, that data could be a couple of weeks old already by the time the decision is being made. And with using this this module, you get really near real-time data, and so the decisions are closer to the data, might also lead to better decision making for taxes, but also for other areas within the business. So let's also look at a couple of use cases. So indeed, profitability and cost management. So this can be used maybe for IT cost management, IT cost allocations, management fees allocations, margin monitoring within the system, also determining manufacturing cost per product. But also there's a vast interest of looking at PAPM to also use this to calculate the footprint of a company in terms of ESG or sustainability reports. Of course, you need to have the data to, you know, put it through the engine, but you can set this all within PAPM. But also Pillar 2 is something that is now being considered, and SAP also provides a sample content, a standard on which base you can see, you know, these are the steps that you should take to get this calculation within your PAPM module. So it's a box of opportunities with a lot of functionalities, but your particular calculation that you would need to configure that using the functionalities of SAP. But they provide at present about 50 use cases already when this module is purchased or taken from SAP. So you have 50 different use cases for which you can find, you know, how to configure that. But the actual configuration needs to be done by the company and focusing on their precise needs and how their business model works. The sample content is updated every quarter, by the way. So moving towards the next slide, please. So various sources. So this is a flow that you can consider just to put it a bit more in perspective. You can have your data from various sources. collect the data, link this with PAPM, transform the data, do your allocations and calculations, planning and forecasting and modeling. And then you can write back the data to ERP. So the outcome of your calculations, you can write it back to the source data, present your results in an analytics dashboard, link it again with SAC for further modeling and dashboarding, or again use this information to link it with, for instance, for DRC to get the relevant data in the relevant returns. So it's a box full of opportunities, a powerful calculation engine that is being used a lot to streamline processes and get faster data more available real time.
Diane, you mentioned SAP Analytics Cloud. Can you quickly tell something about SAP Analytics Cloud?
Well, yes, we have here a couple of other dashboards that we that we show here on the screen. So maybe just running very quickly. So the first one is the Fiori Launchpad, which I think Kerben mentioned already at the start. So the tiles with all the various modules that you have. And then you have your various overview pages where you can drill down per model to get the information and reports that you need from the particular model. So so the multidimensional reports one, that is, for instance, I think the last points that Gerard mentioned about getting the particular data from box I think 85 was it, Gerard, in the VAT return. And this all of this data that you have gathered, you can then use to do the analytics in SAP Analytics Cloud, and also do the relevant dashboards that you need to present the data in the right way. So Analytics Cloud is also a calculation engine, but the difference with PAPM is that it can just handle more data than Analytics Cloud, whereas Analytics Cloud you can present it also in the dashboards that you need in a particular way.
Thanks a lot, Diane. Thank you as well, Gerard and Diane, for both diving into these 4 modules in more detail. We would, and as also already some questions about tax compliance management, we would like to organize a next session on one of the modules. So we also would like to hear from you what is the module you are most interested in, so we can also check where we need to have the next session on. I think most important to remember, I think, SAP modules, a few things: one single source of truth, S/4HANA, real-time insights, and tax content as well in different modules, which is a change compared to the SAP approach differently. Then I think it would be good, also of interest of time, to move on to the next topic about if you have an SAP project, and I already noticed that 27% was not involved yet, where to start. So maybe if I can give the floor to you, Gerben, to tell a little bit more about the process in an S4 project implementation.
Yeah, yes, of course. On this slide, we have outlined different scenarios that you, on a high level, can identify for an S/4HANA migration program. So typically, there are 4 different categories that you can identify. I mentioned before in the introduction the technical migration, so that's basically the system conversion type of approach. So that's the more technical approach that you are doing. A shell creation is basically that a lot of companies have developed a lot of custom code over the 10, 20, 30 years that they are running different SAP solutions. What you see that some companies are stating that they want to keep their USP, basically custom code type of solutions. So therefore, a shell creation is possible, that you reuse or use your specific custom code that's unique for your company. And then most companies are also looking at selective data copies. So they want to use certain data they want to keep and want to migrate that to the new environment. That's also the bit of the mix and match to make it simple. And the greenfield approach is more that we also have a client that's now considering they have 3 different outdated SAP or legacy SAP systems with quite some custom code. So we are now talking with that company, and of course you can promote one of the systems to be the leading system that you want to take that forward as the future S4 system. But in this case, the company is also considering to start greenfield and then basically start fresh. That also gives you a lot of benefits. You don't need to look at all the old custom code. Sometimes documentation is not there, and you can bypass a lot of different discussions internally. So it depends per situation, but for now and for this call, it's important to understand that there are different ways of approaching such an S/4HANA migration. Maybe next slide, Taya. A typically program approach for a business transformation consists of multiple phases. So what you see on the screen is KPMG's way of doing it. So I have identified 5 phases in such a program: efficient phase, a validate, a construct/build phase, a deploy if you want to deploy a template, for instance, and an evolve phase, which is a support phase after going live in a market, in a country, or as for the whole company. The important part to remember for this slide, typically business transformation programs where you do business process standardization, harmonization, these type of things, the tax function needs to be included. That's what we have outlined in the objectives of each phase. What you see, for instance, in the efficient phase, it's important that the tax department is involved in either thinking with the team about setting up company code structures, for instance, or changing an approach. So if you have a principal agent toller type of model or different other setups, it's important that the tax department is part of this discussion. Also thinking about the different solutions, the new SAP solutions we have demonstrated. Are you going to use DSC? Are you going to use PAPM? So it's important to participate early in the program. In the validate phase, it's all about, I noticed in the poll, indirect tax determination on the design, the blueprinting part of it. So it's important to look at the configuration of the system, whether it's correctly documented. The construct phase is basically building the solution, testing it, and in the deployment also be part of the user acceptance tests, for example. Testing and training is important, so also training colleagues from your department, basically. And post-go live support, making sure that all the improvements, innovations, that people are using the system correctly, that's also important. So in a nutshell, it's important to be part of all the different phases of such a program.
Thanks a lot, Gerben, and gives a really good insight also with the different approach on brownfield and greenfield. And I think it's really important that you already mentioned that there should be tax should be on board on each and every stage. This were obviously the KPMG approach, but the similar stages we see in other projects also. They call me a different name, but it's in principle the same. So key takeaways for today. As also mentioned by everyone, I think today who are presenting, tax needs to be involved at an early stage. I see also a nice remark from someone in the chat. Also budget. I think budget also relates to a good tax technology strategy. So it's also good to have an understanding of your own strategy, but also an understanding of the S4 program and what are the ambitions in the S4 program, as well as the tax modules which are assigned to the S4 model. So our advice would be, don't wait, start as soon as possible to build a strategy and your budget. So next session we will have is in 1 month. It will be about the e-invoicing and digital reporting. However, we also noticed that we have a clear winner on the SAP tax module is tax compliance management. So we will definitely host also a session on this one. Also of interest of time, I will skip the questions, but if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Last but not least, you can scan the QR code to receive your PE certificate. This QR code will be valid for 2 hours after this event. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And I would like to thank all the presenters today and all the input from everyone on the chat. Thanks a lot and have a nice day.